Hi, my name is Hananya.
Hello there, my name is Shameem.
And my name is Leslie. We're three international friends on a mission to write and publish our first novels. We are the Three Writing Amigas.
Man, oh, look at you guys in the blue. I feel left out. But orange is a complementary color to blue.
Well, there
You're
you
right.
go.
You're right. It's on the same circle.
It's on the color wheel. It's,
Yeah.
when you do the color wheel. Yeah. So,
Nice.
And
you know what? I forgot. Look, I don't have my my recording
Your
planned.
plant. You decor. You don't have
I
your
think I
decor
should
ready.
probably go get it. What do you think?
You can if you want to.
Okay.
I love
yeah, we'll chat. We'll chat
I
amongst
was
us.
going to say, talk amongst yourselves.
We will.
that.
And Hananya, your headphones match. Your headphones match your top.
I know.
It's very coordinated. My God. Okay.
So does the microphone.
Oh my God. I cannot believe that Leslie stages a plant for her headphones.
The decor.
See, the planter stays here, and I just move it,
Of the plant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fair.
So it's like it loves it here too. But I'm actually kind of like in a little corner. I mean, this is my writing desk, but most of my office, studio, whatever you want to call it, is on that side, which will never be seen because
Mhm.
it's bad.
We've seen it.
Have I shown it to you?
Yes. Because that's
Oh,
where
that's right. I did. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll just disregard that. Hello.
Hi. How are you guys today?
Pardon me?
How are you guys today?
Honest to God, I have been 3 writing Amigas from this morning up until I had a bowl of cereal 15 minutes ago.
Oh my God.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, because I know we've got a masterclass after this, so I wanted to get a head start. So
Right.
I'm hoping to dazzle you both afterwards.
I'm sure
Okay.
you will. And I
Yeah.
just want to say, I was like crazy this morning too. So I have begun reading your story,
I saw.
Hananya, which is awesome. I love it already. And I've only read, well, I'm not going to give it away, so I can't say to win, but I've only read, maybe 4 pages in or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm already, and I'm making little comments like, oh my
I'm so excited.
yeah, I'm really digging it. And I gotta say, I know we talked about style already, but I like the style here that you're with these short paragraphs. It just infuses it with energy and gives a very interesting voice to your main character. So it's very cool. I like it a lot.
Can we just talk about one small thing though about the story?
Okay.
Yes.
Is that
I don't know if it's a spoiler for Leslie because I don't think she's read all of it.
No.
Oh, no, I haven't. I'm not at the end yet.
I'm sticking on the style thing. Hananya, you write like a friggin' American.
Well, true.
Yes.
But I will say I am going to give you there's a couple little things that
That's fine.
because it's not your native language.
Exactly.
But 99.9999%, I would never have guessed that an American was not writing this.
I know.
Seriously.
Honestly, it just continues to blow my mind.
I know.
How are you doing?
Me
in
too.
Amsterdam?
So if we want to talk a little bit about our books.
Yes.
I was looking back now that I'm finishing this course thing and everything, at the genres. Do you guys remember that early on we part of an exercise, I couldn't find the exercise, but I was able to amazingly find the thing that you could go to, where you put in what your book, the categories of your book, and then you could find, so I have found the site again.
Okay.
You need to send us the link, please.
Yes, please.
Oh God, let me just say
It doesn't have to
something.
be now.
Not now. I'm just saying. Yeah.
No, because we should do it now. But you
Well,
technically,
nobody needs to
I am
know.
an old lady.
Nobody needs to know how crap you are at copying and pasting in WhatsApp.
It's fine.
He was like, let me save you, Leslie. I'm going to do it right now. It's just, no, it's just, you guys do it so fast. Like, I never even see you like move to do it. You're like, done. I'm like, damn, you did it. No,
We do it mentally.
do it because I have it up. You do it mentally. I have it up. Oh, wait, I have to go back one because I had it on my thing. Here's the subject list. See, I'm slow. I'm like, okay, copy. And I have to go over here. So I'm an old lady.
But it doesn't matter how fast you are.
No,
I want to be
It's
fast.
very
like
much
you
so
guys.
beside the point.
Yeah, but I want to be fast like you guys.
You don't have to be.
I know.
Slow wins the
So
race.
I just sent it to you. Do you see it?
Yeah, I saw it come in.
Okay. So, because this is a really good thing. I think, and there's another part of it that I wasn't able to find, but I'll tell you in a second. I think this is such a cool thing, and just for people listening, it's the Book Industry Study Group, so BISG. If you go to their site, they have something on there called the Complete BISAC subject headings list, which is like the industry standards headings that bookstores use of where they're going to put your book. And it's a really great resource. So if you go there, and then I went to, oh, there it is. There's a browse button. Okay. So then that's the complete headings list. And first it starts with major categories, right? So you find your category. So I went to young adult, family, general is sort of where I thought my book might work. And you have a code on the side, right? So my code for that would be YAF for family 018000. So if I go to that, if I then type in just that code, up comes like bookstores and bookshops where you can order books. If you look in there, it's books in your genre. And so it's really great because you can find comps, right? But it also kind of shows you, am I in the right area? Am I writing for the right, in my mind, this is my genre, but is it really in terms of once my book is written, is that where it would really go? Gives you that information. But really importantly, it gives you comps, which is great. And then you can also look up sort of, not everything, I don't know that every genre would have it, but the tenets for your kind of story. So like, for instance, my story is, 19th century African-American family. There's certain things that are kind of expected. Now you can write anything you want, but like when I was in grad school, I did a course called Form and Creativity, which sounds like it sounds like it doesn't fit, right? Sounds like an oxymoron. But in fact, if you're writing a romance has certain elements, right? You've got to have two people who, may or may not be attracted to each other in the beginning, but they end up in the end, right? I mean, there's more, better than I do, but you know what I mean? There's certain tenets. And so this allows you it helps you to actually find kind of what those most expected elements are. And knowing that, you can check and see if you have those elements in your story. And obviously how those elements come about in your story, there's, myriad ways of doing that. But I think it's a really cool thing to check your novel against, because if you're way off, maybe you're writing in something else. So you don't want to go out pitching ultimately your story saying, you're writing a romance when in fact you're writing, something else. I think it's part of what we need to.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I definitely need to refresh myself on that because it's a long time since I looked at the genre and the tenets. So yeah, that's a good catch.
I mean, we ultimately want to sell our books, and I think as newbie authors, there's always those really famous authors who break the molds and they but that wasn't their first book. If we want to be successful and get going, I think you have to pay attention to things like that. You know?
Yeah.
You know, and so like Hananya, you've written a lot of romances. Like what are the things that you know that in your genre, how would you describe it?
With romance in general or my book specifically?
Well, both, you know, romance in general and how your book that you're working on now fits that.
Well, I would say romance in general, you always have two people that either don't want to be together or want to be together, depending on like what trope you go follow, I guess. But yeah, in a way, like you always have ways that they kind of will end up together. Like that is usually like the goal, right? They want to end up together. But there's always a struggle to get there. Like it cannot be a linear line of like happiness. Like there always has to be events that stop them from being together or that can like complicate the relationship. There always has to be tension. It cannot just be like a perfect, everything's great. Like that's just not how that works. So that is definitely something that should always be there, I feel, for like a good romance to be there. I want to see the struggles. I want to see like how they fight for each other, that kind of thing.
And the more will they or won't they get together, the better it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like in my book, like without spoiling it too much, but there is definitely that like will they, won't they kind of thing in the end. So yeah, it kind of leaves the reader guessing, I guess, in a way of like, are they gonna end up together? Are they not gonna end up together? So yeah. And that is like why I'm also like, do I market romance? Do I not market romance? Do I have a happy ending?
Do you have to have a happy ending in romance?
No, there's like a lot of people that would want that, like a happily ever after. But realistically, that's not always the case, right? So
I'm
trying to think of that film I watched, and it's really and it was obviously the movie of a book, and it was not a happy ending, and I was devastated.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Did you feel cheated, or was it just that you were sad that they didn't come together?
I think a romance or like a true love story where it's a tragic ending happens far less than a happy ending. Usually, you know, they go off into the sunset and never have any more strife. But this one ended in like, no, it's over. It was death actually, death of one of them. And I was just, but it was good though. It was really good.
Well, I'll tell you, there was this movie years ago called Love Story.
Yes.
And you know it.
She had cancer.
Yeah. And I'm not a big romance person. Okay. But there've been some that I've loved. But my dearest friend is like romantic. She has enough romance going on for both of us. And we were like young. I mean, we were teenagers, and she made me go to this movie. And I was like, I want to go to this movie. But I went with her, and it was so tragic in the she called me, I cried, and I was so mad at myself that it got to me, you know? And I'm not saying that I wanted them to be together. I don't know what I wanted, but clearly the story was laid out so well that you just felt for them both, and the fact that she would die was just, it was devastating. You know?
But that's really good storytelling, isn't it? When it evokes, you know,
emotion, real emotion. Yeah, absolutely. Well, what are your since you were the romance writer of the group, so Hananya, what are your favorite kinds of endings?
I like both. I kind of like the happily ever after because that is always like a feel good ending. But at the same time, I kind of also like the realistic side of things. Like it's not always perfect, and I like seeing that in stories and in movies, like in general. Just because I feel like it's more realistic to have like the actual struggles and like not just like, oh yeah, we fall in love, great, everything's great, and that's how it ends. Like, sure, like, you know, that it's the way that could end. But I feel like maybe that's also my view on life. But it's not always perfect. you know, I come from divorced parents, so that makes my view on romance and love different maybe than some people that have like only known happy marriages in their life. But that is why I feel the realistic side is also that it doesn't always work out, and I like seeing that too. I like both.
Yeah.
It just also depends on the mood I'm in. If I want like happily ever after, if I want like feel good, then I would want to watch something that actually has a happily ever after. But I'm fine with either, as long as it grips you and as long as it's like good storytelling and you're enjoying it. Then yeah,
and
go either way.
Sometimes it depends on what's appropriate to that story, right? Like some people I know, they just force that happy ending, even if the kind of the middle, the story, it doesn't seem like it would end up, you know, that way.
Yeah, I don't like it when it's like characters where you're like, oh, they shouldn't end up together because obviously they're not right for each other, and then they end up together and you're like, there's been no growth.
One of the things that was actually kind of a struggle for me, that my book is not a romance, but you know, it's really like a family dynamic story. But YA, one of the things in terms of genre for YA is to not necessarily have a happy ending, but there needs to be an ending with hope, right? It's kind of one of the tenets. So and I think that's changing a little bit. There have been some newer stories that have come out that are pretty, like, you know, rough all the way through, but they're a little older. They're still considered YA. They're not quite there's this new level of young adult, not young adult.
New adult?
New adult, thank you. So they're not quite new adult, they're a little younger. So it's still YA, but old enough where the ending is not quite, you know, happier. And it was something I was struggling with because I have this big moment that is so hard and harsh, you know, like my climactic moment. How do you get to something that then fits the young adult genre, which is, you know, hope or something? And I think I've worked it out actually by going through this this workshop, but it wasn't something I could come to naturally originally, because I part of it was, you know, as I said, I didn't realize I was really writing about the mother and the daughter, but I didn't want it to feel forced. Like all of a sudden everybody's just happy again, you know, we'll just go to an epilogue and it's all worked out. You know, you go to an epilogue 2 years later and it's all worked out. So it was really a difficult thing to do. I don't think that's always, you know, that's always easy.
Yeah.
If you don't give away too much, Miss Pinkham, how does did you struggle with any of that? But you're not at the end of your book, but you, in your mind, are you thinking about
I know the ending.
Okay. And where do you think you're going to land?
I already know. So my ending is going to be a little bit weird because I have a clear bad guy. Like my bad guy is a narcissistic, charismatic abuser. So he is horrible.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit a mixture really of what you've been talking about. So my genre, I gotta read it. So my book is classed as, I think, contemporary, but it's also sort of fits into the literary fiction, but it's primarily women's fiction.
So women's lit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And my ending, do I want to say what the ending is? Do I want to say what
No,
the
you don't have to say exactly what your ending is. I was just thinking more like the mood of it. Like, you know, where I said
the mood of it is there is hope. As in, you know, my protagonist, there is hope, but equally, you know, like when you read some stories or watch some films where the bad guy doesn't get his just desserts,
right?
That's kind of where my book is going. You know, gotcha. You want the bad guy to be, you know, you want justice for my protagonist, but it's not necessarily going to happen the way you would really want it to. So.
But that might be appropriate for your book because it's, you know, because
it's realistic.
Yeah. Well, because like you say, in life, bad people don't always get their just desserts, do they?
Exactly.
No, I mean
they live to go on to create more havoc with other people.
Yeah, so. And sometimes that is the message, you know.
Yeah, and that's kind of
But it still doesn't mean, and I don't know, this is your book. it doesn't mean that for your main character, for your
Mhm.
protagonist, doesn't mean your protagonist can't have a good ending, because then
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
more.
Well,
So, like,
she's
you
a
know.
survivor, so
Yeah.
so that's the theme is not a
So
victim.
why is, I'm just curious, because I don't really know contemporary fiction versus just
Well,
adult fiction. Like, what are the differences? Why do you?
I didn't, well, it was told to me.
Oh,
I didn't choose that. I knew in my mind, I've always known it was women's literature, or women's fiction, sorry. And I know that when I go onto Amazon and I scroll down, and like they've got multitudes of layers and layers of genres and under the umbrellas.
yeah.
And then because like domestic violence features heavily, that is a tag now as well for books, I guess, as well, that you've got to have warnings. It should not be a surprise that you're going to open a book and read that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So so I was told it was contemporary because it was set in in a real world, really. Not too long ago, even though it was over 10 years.
Basically, like, the definition I just Googled is contemporary is basically any sort of nowadays fiction that is after the Second World War.
Yeah.
So and basically like stories that could happen to real people in a real setting.
Yeah, which is mine definitely fits in that then.
Yeah. But why wouldn't you want it to be? But it's very woman forward, so it wouldn't.
Well, I just think about who's my,
audience?
Who's my audience? What demographic are they?
So wider than women's lit, meaning just very focused on a female audience.
Yes, I'd like to think men will read it. I think they will get I think men should read stories about abusive relationships as well as women.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to think they do, and I think got to dream big. I hope they will. But if they don't, enough women will, enough to be really just to recognize. I'm just gobsmacked by how much narcissism is featuring in my world at the moment, all the different flavors of narcissism, and as well because of some of the nastiness that we see on social media, especially when it's targeted towards women. So at the time, I think, because my book is set in the late 1980s, we didn't have labels or language to say that your abuser was a charismatic, narcissistic abuser. They were just either, I don't know, psychos off their heads, horrible. But we weren't as educated and worldly because we didn't have the internet back then. So so that's what I call it that. But in the story, because it's in the 1980s, it's just a hateful person who's doing really horrible things. So
Right. Have you started to read in your genre at all to sort of?
Yes, but it's so bloody depressing. Like, because I want to read about people in like really difficult relationships, not just from a female perspective, but from a male as well. But it's I watch murder documentaries as well, and if you're reading about that stuff and you're watching about that stuff, it goes back to nightmares, goes back to our dreams, which you are really lucky, Leslie, because you don't bloody remember anything. I remember stuff. So I have to switch to lighthearted. So on my Kindle, as an example, I got 3 books on the go. One for when I want to get back into my writing on my book for research, and another then for emptying my head of all the whole.
Well, but do you find it difficult to write in this genre, to write of this sort of abusive, because that's its own subgenre of contemporary, right? Is this sort of relationship? I don't know what you call it. It might be relationship or abusive relationship or something. So do you find it difficult to write this story? And not because of it being modeled after or whatever, inspired by true events, but just in general, because you're saying it's difficult for you to read someone else writing about it.
Well, I get agitated sometimes when I read other people's, because I just feel like I've gone through it myself, so I know how it feels, and I get frustrated sometimes when it goes back to what we were saying the last time we met. you know, the women, don't get me wrong, my protagonist does not manage it well. She keeps going back to him, same old, because that's what you know, we
That's
do.
what happens.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I did. But I just think some of the, from what I was reading, I just didn't see it how it is. It was just a little bit too fluffy or too
Interesting.
romanticized for me.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted it to be more real and more,
Okay.
not hard hitting, but just like, I just wanted it to be more realistic.
Right.
And I think, you know, a really, a relationship can be just really difficult, can't it?
Absolutely. I think all relationships are difficult because look, you put two people, we're pack animals as human beings,
Yeah.
but when you live with your pack as opposed to just, you know, being able to see each other once a week or whatever, you know, of course, you know, it's difficult. So it was like you were feeling, is it that you were feeling that the books that you read were from, I don't know, were maybe from people who were, like, I could write a story about an abusive relationship, but I did not live through one. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's
So maybe,
the difference.
I don't know.
Like, doing the
Maybe.
research, and you can do a lot of research and all that stuff, right? But
Yeah.
there are things that didn't ring true to you, I guess.
Yes. Yes. You've just articulated it way better than me. Yes.
Well, and was it, I'm curious, because I just love talking about writing. Was it because, was it in the internal dialogue of the people, like how they were actually, or where was it in the story? Do you know? I mean, just curious.
I didn't really feel the fear. I think that's I think that's what it was. And I think obviously you know, I'm not blowing smoke up my own writing, but I just feel like I was able to write so that whoever read it, they would know instinctively, they would feel the fear of the protagonist, but also understand that it's super complex in terms of, you can be really scared of somebody and know that they're gonna beat you up or do whatever, but you still love them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's the one thing, at least for me, that whenever I hear of relationships like that, and I know that they can be difficult in a lot of things, but it's the thing that is, I think anyone who has not been in an abusive relationship, it's the kernel that they can never quite understand.
Yeah, I feel that way. Because I feel like I would never understand fully how that works.
And I wanted to break the notion of, so my story is about a family, and it's about the women in the family. There is, you know, a brother, but it's about all these women. When you look at them individually, they're all strong, independent, brave women, yet each one of them has, you know, been at the end of a fist for lots of different reasons and didn't walk away when they should have. Yeah, when you think they should have. Logic knows that you know what's, you know, as much as the man cries, because there is a pattern. They cry, they're sorry, they'll never do it again. You always think, okay, there's something, you know, and I have physically done that myself. And now I think I'm older and wiser, and I don't think I would ever put up with that before. But when I was younger, I did put up with it. And I thought, you know, it was just this mental notion that he loved me because he was super jealous, because he didn't want me to be with my friends. He only, you know, he wanted to be with me. Now I can see through it, but then I couldn't. But then I know a lot of women who are older than me, different scenarios, who have fallen for exactly the same MO. Yeah, and I don't think it's got anything to do with somebody being weak or strong. It's just the power of a narcissistic man. And if you ever meet a psychopathic narcissistic bloke, then you are in trouble, no matter how strong you are. So I think I'm glad you two haven't experienced it, but it also means that you haven't met those horrible men either. So
which is probably a good thing, you know.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Do you find writing this book cathartic in any way?
Yes, I didn't think it was, but it's made me remember lots and lots of stuff. But it's made me remember lots of good stuff as well. And it's also made me remember because I talk about a lot about my, growing up in a working class environment, not much money, but it's also made me realize how much my mother sacrificed to bring us kids up. And and I went home, I think, a couple of months ago, and I just wanted to give my mother a hug, because I was like, God, you put up with some shit off me, never mind everything else. Because I was remembering.
Yeah. No, that's really true. Have you ever, Hananya, written a book that's, sort of where I know it's romance, but still pulled storylines or whatever out of your life?
Out of my life? I don't think so. I do have like kind of I feel like a thing where I don't usually write the mother into the story, which is weird. But I feel like in a way it might be because I have such a special relationship with my mom that I could never fully express that onto a page.
Wow.
So I feel weird writing about like a mother-daughter relationship when my mom and I are so close. So I somehow never really write that in my stories, which is kind of strange. But in a way, like what I draw mostly from like myself or my like life, I think is usually the way I think. So a lot of my like internal stuff will be like my own mind in a way. I have like one short story that I wrote kind of a first draft of, because I was considering submitting it for the anthology. That is very much so like the mental struggle, like a part of it, like obviously it's not all of it, but it was originally like a scene from a book that is never going to see the light of day, but it was originally like a scene from that like kind of book, and it was very much so like how I would experience things or how I would react to things, what my mind would do to me, like what kind of tricks it plays, and how like I know that my mind is like going in a certain direction, and I realize that that is not realistic and that is not how I really feel or how I really think. So I can realistically like talk with myself and have a discussion. And that is something that I sometimes like write into characters. And in a way, like I have always said that if I would write down my life story, people would not believe it. So I have like started in a way to kind of write down some things. I don't know if I will ever publish it, because obviously it does go into a lot of things that have happened in my family that I don't necessarily want to publish. But yeah, it is like there's like, yeah, I don't know, I feel like in a way there's a lot that has happened in my younger life that isn't necessarily what like Shameem has gone through, but it did definitely like make me grow up fast. But yeah,
I just want to say pain is relative. Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
And strife is relative.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, all these things, thank you for sharing that really seriously, Hananya, because you've not shared that you had some difficulties in your childhood, and Shameem has, and I have too. And I think that to find silver linings in things, but I think it's also really true. Those things, those moments, whether we ever write about them explicitly or not, give us different perspectives. And we bring all of that to our writing, whether we want or not. Like, I didn't know I was writing a story about a mother and a daughter, right?
I always say that. I always say to whoever I talk to, like, in a way, every single book is a reflection of you. And it doesn't have to be about you, or it doesn't have to be your story, but in a way, there's always going to be that little hint of you in that book, which is what makes it unique.
That's right. And also, and I think that, I don't know, there are people who have, I guess, sort of like not perfect, but calm
stable
upbringing, stable. I mean, I don't know a lot of people. Once you really start to dig, like I used to always say when I was making docs in the early days when we're still shooting on film, and it wasn't everybody's in a documentary now, right? It wasn't like that at all. And we would find these, what we thought were amazing stories, and we'd go out to these little towns and everything. And people would be like, I don't have anything to say. I mean, I'm just a farmer, or I'm just a, housewife or whatever. And I'd always say to them, everybody has a story. And it's really true. Once you you would get them to calm down and just start talking, you would find out amazing things that they didn't think, that was just their life. And they didn't think that, they're normal or they're regular, like, but they'd have these amazing stories. And I think that that's true of most of us. I think it's rare that people really have such a perfect, upbringing that they have nothing in there, but it's whether or not you can get to it. And us as writers, even before we ever came to a point where we said we're going to publish something, we were always storytellers. I know that.
Yeah.
Always. And so we were always putting in and working out things and, and all of that stuff by writing whatever stories we're writing. So
that's so true, because my working job has a lot of it is storytelling, and that was long before I ever thought about writing a book. Yeah, I think I just saw things differently, and I'm like, this needs to be a story. Let's tell the customer a story, because they'll remember the story. They won't remember like an encyclopedia of 50 million pages.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also seeing stories everywhere you go. Do you do that? Like, oh my God, if I don't clean out, like I have between emails and like actual files every few years, it's just like I would not be able to get into my room everywhere. And it's a lot of it's stories I know I'm never going to write, but it's like, oh my God, that's a great story. Right. And I can't help it. I just see stories everywhere.
Yeah.
It's sort of fun.
This is why I have so many story ideas.
That is right. And Shameem, you just haven't allowed yourself. You've got a million stories. You just have not.
I think so. That's why I was so like, when I read Hananya's short story this morning or whenever it was this afternoon, I was just like, oh my God, this is brilliant. And because I read one of your chapters, I think, I don't know, in the sequence. And I was like, it couldn't be as it's so different. And I was just like,
so different.
I was just like, did the same person even write this? Because nothing is similar.
I feel the same way about it, though. I feel like this short story is completely different from how I've written before, but in like a very good way.
Yeah.
What inspired it? I mean, what?
I can go into how this came to be in a whole episode, I feel, but I don't know.
Okay, take note. Episode on that.
Yeah, I can talk about like how it came from like initial idea to current idea, because it definitely went through a couple.
Let's do that once you get into the anthology, because then it's going to be published. Then you can be more free to talk about it. Let's do an episode on that. I think that would be fascinating.
Yeah. I think so as well.
Yeah. So we'll stop that. No spoiler alerts.
Exactly.
Okay.
Make sure to stay tuned for that episode.
Exactly. In the meantime, you want to get some coffee?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's definitely time for coffee.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to follow Hananya at Hananya Leclerc on Instagram and YouTube. Follow Shameem on Instagram at rnpinkhamauthor. And Leslie on Instagram at ld.feral.writer. Or catch all of us on YouTube at 3 Writing Amigas. Until our next hangout, keep on writing.